The southern tip of the Americas is often called the end of the world, but it's more known by its actual name, Patagonia. The landscape is mostly flat, very windy, and sparsely populated with fragile soil. Intensive sheep grazing has been turning some of the vital grassland into desert. Farmers there are struggling to eke out a living, and now they're working with a U.S.-based environmental organization along with a producer of woolen clothes to save the grasslands. America's Now contributing correspondent Daniel Schweimler took a journey to the far tip of Argentina to see how their solution will help Patagonia and beyond.
Patagonia is a region that inspires the spirit of adventure. Its windswept grasslands difficult to tame and home only to the hardiest of plants, animals and people. It's where those notorious outlaws Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid and the beautiful Etta Place hid out at the start of the 20th century on the run from US justice. Our visit there entailed a 3-hour flight south from Buenos Aires before the tough part of our journey began. This is the road to Monte Dinero in the far southeastern corner of the Argentine mainland. We've been driving for over an hour and we've seen nobody, just a few sheep and a couple of rare birds. And there's still a long, long way to go on very poor roads. Difficult terrain supports a sparse population. Sheep farming has long been the major industry here. But over the years, constant grazing has turned 20 million acres of this already fragile ecosystem from green to brown, from fertile land to desert. Sheep farmers were forced to reduce their stock, and some went out of business. Well, we've arrived. This is Monte Dinero, one of the more distant corners of the world, with the Atlantic Ocean just behind and the border with Chile just over here to my left. And in this grass beneath my feet, one of the solutions towards making this world just that little bit more sustainable. Richard Fenton has 20,000 merino sheep on the 64,000-acre Monte Dinero ranch, the 5th generation of his family to work the land.
There's nothing beneath the ground that'll take those nutrients back into the ground to keep it living. So one of the main things here is that this is what we want to stop, and this is due to continuous grazing. We need to let the land cycle as it should.
By mimicking natural grazing patterns for wildlife, rather than grazing sheep in one place continuously, the vegetation has had time to grow back. The new protocol, by a closer monitoring of the land, encourages more diversity of native grass species and deeper grass coverage. Richard Fenton realised he was onto something and spread the word.
The pasture is much more healthy. The species that we'd never seen in 20 years of pasture evaluations, we're starting to see them, and we've been able to do that without slowly going back to the amount of stock that my great-grandfather had when he first arrived here from Ireland.
He's part of an organisation called Ovis 21, which is employing the new method, saving the Patagonia grasslands from overgrazing. It now has members in Argentina, Chile and Uruguay.
It's been 10 years that we've been working together. It's about 150 farmers at the different farms at the moment. Nearly 50 are already certifying with a new standard that we've developed together with the Nature Conservancy.
The Nature Conservancy is a US-based environmental organisation that heard what Richard was doing and moved in to provide scientific assistance to what he and other Patagonian farmers were learning on the ground. They run regular workshops with Ovis 21, this one in the nearest city, Rio Gallegos, attended by the organisation's Chris Paig, who details the problems they are fighting to overcome.
The Nature Conservancy came here 5 years ago, and what we found was that the people have actually analyzed the situation down here, and with the best of intentions, the land managers all thinking they're doing the best thing, the lands are degrading rapidly. Over 20 million acres of desertified lands, meaning that there's not much soil left, the vegetation can't really support it. So that's a serious issue, and it's happening more and more all over the country.
Ovis 21 and the Nature Conservancy are also working with the clothing company Patagonia Inc., which sells sustainably sourced woolen items produced by sheep on the revitalized grassland.
Some of the lands in parts of Patagonia are pretty bad shape, such that they're abandoned. And it's going to take a long time and a lot of effort to get those back. But much of Patagonia is not yet in that shape, and that's what we want to focus on, is make sure we understand. And then these abandoned lands, we're hoping that they can be brought back into a productive use or be utilized for wildlife conservation issues or some other thing. But it's been devastating to the local economies in those areas, and we think that there's great hope if this kind of process moves across the country.
It took a particular kind of settler to make life work in Patagonia. They needed to be hardy, self-sufficient and bursting with initiative. The winds are fierce and the winters severe. They came from places where life was already difficult, the Highlands of Scotland, or escaping religious persecution in Wales, or the Great Famine in Ireland. The Fentons have been here for 6 generations.
This is Arthur Fenton and this is Emma McMahon. Arthur Fenton came here around 1886. He was the first doctor in Rio Gallegos. And he married Emma McMahon, who was the widow owner of Estancia Montedinero.
Which is where we are now.
Which is where we are now.
And where did he come from?
He came from a city called Sligo in Ireland.
Family is important in this part of the world, both those who came before for their knowledge and experience, and those to come.
We want to take the best care of our land as possible, and we'd like to be making a good living so our children can stay on the land, and that means making a good business out of the land. So it's the best of both worlds.
What's being learned in Patagonia can also be applied to grasslands around the world. Natalie Dudinsky is from the Nature Conservancy's Argentina office and joined us in Monte de Nero.
Grasslands are one of the most large ecosystems of the world, and they're very important because they provide a lot of ecosystem services. They are very important sources of biodiversity and carbon storage, and are one of the most threatened ecosystems worldwide and the less protected ones. So this learning from Patagonia is very important for the rest of the world, and now Colorado in the United States is thinking of implementing our protocol there, and to see if all together we can have good results on the ground.
Sheep grazing is the established industry in Patagonia. Oil and gas industries arrived here more recently. Both are vital to the economy in Patagonia in particular, and to Argentina in general. It feels like the end of the world up here, or the beginning. The well-established sheep industry on that side, the more recently arrived oil and gas extraction on the other side. Both a strain on the fragile ecosystem, both trying to become sustainable. The new methods of grazing appear to be working. Large parts of Patagonia are being revitalized, returned to their former, albeit fragile state, in a unique collaboration that's producing results here and providing lessons for those in similar environments around the world.
Once you're already doing it, it all seems more simple, but no, it is very challenging for them. This isn't just Patagonia, it's happening in Australia, New Zealand, South Africa, US, Mongolia. The people that have got the results, those are our greatest allies in spreading the word.
Patagonia is a dream, an adventure, a challenge where only the toughest survive. However, even this hardy terrain needs understanding and some loving care and attention to ensure its sustainability.
Our thanks to Daniel Schweimler for that report.